All the members voted. Tyler roll call shows 67 members present. Chair declares quorum conducting business. House motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that when we do adjourn, we adjourn until December 5th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Representative Lehman.
For the motion and second. All those in favor, indicate saying aye. Those opposed, no. Motion is adopted. We'll now move on to the second reading calendar. House Bill 1001, Representative Smaltz. I'm sorry. That would have been interesting. House Bill 1032, Representative Smaltz. Chair hands down, second reading, House Bill 1032.
House Bill 1032, Bill for Enactment, the Indiana Code concerning elections.
Bill's ready for amendment. Recommitment or engrossment. Representative Pierce, House motion.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 5. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended to read.
For the motion, is there a second? Chair. We got you. Chair recognizes Representative Pierce to speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. This amendment would remove the sections of the bill that relate to enacting new congressional maps and replace it with language that would establish a nonpartisan, non-political redistricting system. You've probably seen this amendment a couple times in the past. They've offered it. It's basically the system used in Iowa, so it avoids having to worry about amending the Constitution or anything. The way the system would work is the law would say that a temporary redistricting advisory committee would be created, selected by the caucuses. And they would work with LSA to draw the maps, and LSA would be legally prohibited from using any political data to draw their maps. And the law considers criteria to consider when drawing the maps, things like communities of interest, compactness, kind of the usual things you talk about when you draw maps. And what happens is LSA draws the map, the bill with the new maps come to the floor, and you can only amend them for technical things. So it's kind of a take it or leave it map. You do an up or down vote on that. Oftentimes the first map will fail. Feedback is provided to LSA as to what changes people like to see in the maps. LSA produces a second map. It comes to the floor. Again, no amendments allowed, up or down vote. I'm told that in Iowa, the second map pretty much always passes. And that's because if you have to do a third round, then it's eligible for amending from the floor, which you can imagine that might be a little bit scary about what could come out of that process. So the important point is this is a way to enact nonpartisan, non-political redistricting without having to worry about amending the Constitution. The General Assembly would still be the ultimate person adopting the maps, but we would take the political analysis. The word scheming keeps coming to my mind, but that's not really a good word to use. The point is, it would be based on things other than political outcomes. And so I think that in the Elections Committee on this bill, we had a lot of discussion about how we wish Congress would act and basically require all the states to do nonpartisan redistricting. I think that instead of adopting this map in the middle of the decade, it makes much more sense for us to be leaders and join a movement, set an example by saying, okay, we're going to break this cycle and we're going to simply do non-political map drawing from here on out. Appreciate your support of the amendment.
First discussion on the motion to amend. Representative Smaltz, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Thank you, Representative Pierce, for your amendment. Yeah, we talked about this quite a bit. The Congress has powers vested to it through the Constitution in Article 1, Section 4 to regulate. And what I would say is this amendment may be an excellent foundation for Congress to start, because I think whatever rules are applied should be applied evenly among all 50 states. It does work in some states presently, like Iowa, but keep in mind, it does work in Iowa till it doesn't work like in Virginia, where they were a part of this sort of redistricting commission, and they are working expeditiously to unwind it. So I think what I would say is I would really like to see Congress make a law, a process that applies to all 50 states equally to create a level playing field. So with that, I would encourage the defeat of the amendment.
For discussion on the motion, Representative Hamilton, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I respectfully disagree with the author. I think this is an incredible opportunity in light of the awareness the past 4 months has created to this issue across the state. It's an incredible opportunity for us, the state of Indiana, to be a leader among states. A few other states are doing this now. We can join them. We can send a signal to Congress. We can send a signal to Congress that this is what's best for our country. Let's lead the way. We know that gerrymandering is bad for democracy, whoever does it. Let's not double down on the bad deeds that we have already perpetrated in our state for decades, whichever party was in control. Let's do the right thing. Let's lead. We've seen such anger and pain and frustration across our state at this proposal. Let's flip the script. Let's change the story for Indiana. We have media staring at us right now. Let's say, wait a minute. Let's stop the madness. Let's be leaders and stop gerrymandering altogether. We know that more competitive seats will result. And when we have more competitive seats, we have harder working legislators. We have legislators, we all have to listen more to our constituents. We may be doing that now, but we absolutely have to do that when we have more competitive seats. It's good for our state. It's good for our democracy. It's what Hoosiers want. I urge you to support this amendment. Thank you.
For discussion on the motion, Representative Leader Giaquin to speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I also rise in support of this motion. And you know, with regards to Virginia, let's remember where this all started with a phone call to Texas, with all this redistricting madness, with how it all got started. But you know, Representative Pierce, you've offered this before. I think it's a great way. You know, when I go through this and I highlight the sections in it that talk about things that have to be adhered to, which districts must be as compact as possible. Can't take into consideration district may not be drawn for the purpose of political party incumbency, all those sorts of things. And you know, what we really do want, we want more competitive elections, frankly. If you want to increase voter turnout, we know where Indiana is ranked when it comes to voter participation, near the bottom. We want competitive races. Too many of these darn races are settled in the primary and not in the general election. I've been in the majority and went with 51 and 52. And I can tell you there's a lot more sharing and working with both sides of the aisle to come up with, frankly, better legislation. I don't think it would even, frankly, be in a place where we are today if not for the gerrymandered districts that we are currently working under at the state level. So, Representative Pierce, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I think it's responsible. I think it's the way to go. I urge your support.
For discussion on the amendment, Chair sees none. Would the author like to close? Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I just want to close by saying that when Texas acted at the request of the president, it really kind of opened this Pandora's box. And we're in this crazy moment of history that I would have never imagined. And it's kind of accelerating and steamrolling, and it's just, quite honestly, getting out of control. I think with this amendment, we have an opportunity to kind of break the fever. Let's stand up and make the point that, yes, we could keep going down the current path and just accelerate that and trigger other states to feel they have to respond. And people will be keeping track every week, you know, who gerrymandered more seats this week, who has to catch up over here. And it will continue going and going and going. If we stop now and say, you know what, on second thought, let's just not continue the craziness. let's not only not do mid-decade redistricting, but let's say we're going to take a stand to take politics out of drawing these maps. Let's send a signal to other states that it's time to stop. It's time to return back to some semblance of order. And let's just stop all this craziness that's sweeping the nation. The eyes are upon us for the moment. We have an opportunity to make a real statement. We have an opportunity to say we are going to lead the way to a better way and not just simply follow down a path that I think will lead to the ruin of our democracy. And I would urge you to support this amendment.
Roll call's been requested. Second will be granted. When machine is open, all those in favor of the amendment vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Show the chair is voting no. While the members voted, tally the roll. Roll call shows 28 ayes, 65 noes. The motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions? House motion, Representative Arrington.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 1. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended.
For the motion, the second, the chair recognizes Representative Arrington to speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. My amendment is about priorities for our state and really for ourselves. We know we're here early in some of the worst weather I've seen in December in years, because there's some thought that our priority should be redistricting in mid-decade. However, that's not what I'm hearing from my constituents. And that's not what I heard at the hearing of the Elections Committee, which I serve on. So this amendment is to clarify those priorities. So what it would do is, if this HB 1032 should pass both houses, it would delay implementation until after certain metrics are met, dealing with affordability here in Indiana. And the three metrics that I chose were utility rates, healthcare, and childcare pre-K. So what they are is that before the map could go into effect, Indiana's electricity costs, as determined by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, rank Indiana in the lowest 25% of states nationally. Now, let me tell you, when I was first elected to the Indiana General Assembly, we would have met that metric. We were among the lowest, probably 3 or 4 states in the nation. So what's happened to us? Currently, our rates are going skyrocketing. And I'm hearing from constituents that they can't afford these rates. As of right now, we're among the most expensive states for residential electricity costs. We rank 20th. And Hoosiers are paying 17.5%, almost 18% more for electricity compared to just last year, the biggest jump in 20 years. The second metric dealing with healthcare, currently, this one I would have the American Community Survey be the metric that we look at. And what they're saying about us now is that 7.6% of Hoosiers have no health care at all. And only 67% of working adults have access to an employer-based plan. So hundreds of Hoosier children, infants, pregnant women, and working adults on Medicaid are facing looming state and federal cuts. And the dysfunction in Washington is set to end the ACA tax credits and skyrocket premium costs for over 300,000 Hoosiers. We are in a crisis situation, and our constituents are telling us that. The third metric, as I say, would be regarding the childcare and pre-K. And the metric is to eliminate the CCDF wait list and pre-K wait list and fully fund those two programs for 1 year. In December 2024, an FSSA announced a wait list, no new vouchers for CCDF and On My Way to Pre-K, mostly federally funded programs due to a $1 billion Medicaid shortfall. And approximately 20,000 children will be waitlisted per year. In September of this year, FSSA announced reduced reimbursement rates due to the 225 million funding gap through 26. And they blamed it on the prior administration. But as a result, there are 31,000 children on the wait list, and FSSA announced no new vouchers until 2027. Now, last month, I visited one of the premier childcare centers in Muncie. They have served Muncie for years and are at the top of the licensed ones in Muncie. They had a local wait list. And so they were able to have federal funding to increase the size, add 3 classrooms to their facility. But now that they've got this space, the wait list is keeping them from filling up those slots that people had wanted. So it's a double-edged sword. They've got the space, but they can't admit new infants. And when an infant, ages out of that room, they can't replace them with somebody else. As far as On My Way to Pre-K, in June of this year, FSSA announced 2,500 enrollment cap on the vouchers and reduced eligibility 140% of the federal poverty level. And as of June, enrollment is capped at 2,500 total children, less than half the current enrollment and a third of what it was just 2 years ago. So before these cuts were even put in place, 85% of the state's 4-year-olds and 91% of the 3-year-olds lacked access to quality service for pre-K. So that's the gist of my amendment, and I would ask for your support.
Roll call is in request and second will be granted. Machines open. Representative, further discussion on the motion? Representative Hamilton, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I rise in exuberant support of Representative Arrington's amendment number 1, because before the maps are rigged for partisan gain, we have a real crisis to tackle in Indiana, the affordability crisis. This amendment starts to do just that for Hoosier families. House Democrats have been and will continue to be focused on the affordability crisis. We have been and will continue to fight for working families. It shouldn't be so difficult for our families to get by. More and more of our families are struggling. How can they not be our top priority? So on the utility bill piece of this, Representative Arrington has requested that we strive to achieve being amongst the 25% least expensive states in the nation for utility costs. That is a reasonable, achievable goal. It will take work, and I strongly support it. And I know that Hoosiers would be thrilled if we were to enact that goal today. And just on Tuesday, House Democrats proposed to start to relieve utility costs for Hoosiers by saying that data centers that currently don't pay taxes, sales taxes, would be instead start to pay sales taxes, and residents who do would no longer pay utility sales tax. That would provide immediate relief to our families. They would be thrilled. On the healthcare front, Representative Arrington has proposed to ensure that every Hoosier has access to affordable health care. Shouldn't that always be our goal? We can set it today. We can say this is a priority for our state. Hoosiers will be grateful for this. We know that 300,000 Hoosiers are staring down massive increases in their premiums come January 1st. Our proposal yesterday would have helped to solve this by providing a state tax credit to cover the difference. Just an idea to help us reach this goal. On the child care front, early learning for our youngest Hoosiers, our infants to 4-year-olds, this proposal would eliminate the wait list for CCDF and On My Way pre-K and fully fund these programs for a year. Families across the state will be thankful for this relief. In my district and across the state, we're seeing facilities close. This reality is hurting families and it's hurting our economy. Yesterday, I received an email from the YMCAs of Indianapolis, Greater Indianapolis, and it read, in their nice email to their donors, begging for money, funding cuts have left parents to face uncertainty, and kids who thrive in Y programs now face losing the stability, the learning, and the trusted relationships they depend on, that they thrive on. This is heartbreaking to me. This is happening in all of our communities. I have one of these YMCA centers in my district, and they have already seen crippling cuts. To be clear, childcare is essential infrastructure, and the government, as with all forms of infrastructure, is the only actor that can help ensure it's affordable and accessible to all. We are failing our families and our economy when we don't do that. The state chamber tells us childcare infrastructure is a top priority for employers. Employers are losing employees because their employees can't find or afford childcare. The private sector can't do this alone. This isn't about state-operated childcare, to be clear. It's about ensuring the private sector is able to deliver quality, affordable childcare in all of our communities. Families would be thrilled to hear this would be a priority for us if we pass this amendment today. And on the funding front, I've got 2 ideas to help fund that. First, we learned months ago that revenue was coming in much higher than the dire predictions received back in April. We could use those funds to help offset the CCDF childcare waitlist. We could also eliminate the K-12 Wealthiest Families vouchers, or the Indiana's new uber wealthy handout, the $100 million per year that we're giving to the wealthiest 3% of families to send them to the private schools they're already going to. Instead, we could direct that $100 million to On My Way pre-K. That would help families across the state. That would help our children have a chance to thrive. It would level the playing field for our 4-year-olds so that they all have a chance to succeed in Indiana. I urge you to support this amendment.
For discussion on the motion of the amendment, Representative Spall, speak on the motion of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Thank you, Representative Arrington, for your amendment. It seems to me that your amendment makes a connection to redistricting is standing in the way of accomplishments that are listed in your amendment. And I just want to point out that over the past 5 years, this body has enacted comprehensive tax relief saving Hoosiers over $1 billion. Passed the largest tax cut in state history at $1.1 billion in 2022. That we approved a balanced 2-year budget prioritizing education and safety. That we've expanded school choice by removing income tax income caps on private school vouchers, that we've reduced K-12 school regulations for greater local flexibility. We've enhanced school safety with physical security and mental health resources. We've advanced early career exploration and technical education. We phased in income tax exemption for military retirement pensions. We've introduced workforce tax credits for employers to incentivize job creation and economic development. We've regulated pharmacy benefit managers to lower drug costs. We've banned state spending on DEI initiatives. We've expanded the lifeline law for underage medical emergencies. We've updated sex ed requirements in schools, strengthened voter registration, new IDs. I mean, this list can go on and on. I can stand up here for an hour and talk about all the accomplishments that we've had, but I will be happy to talk about the things that we should, in my opinion, pay attention to in the coming session, that just because we're redistricting right now, we're not still concerned about property taxes or healthcare costs and transparency, utility bills, childcare, pre-K affordability, language I'm working on right now, education quality and funding, public safety, housing, jobs, infrastructure, fiscal responsibility. We are going to get to work. This is one topic, one bill of many that we're going to face. So I would appreciate and I would encourage your defeat of the amendment.
For discussion on the amendment, Chair Representative Delaney, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had no intention of talking on this amendment till I was favored with the discussion by Representative Schmaltz, who apparently is not paying attention to what I've been paying attention to. He's talked about some little tax cuts we made and vouchers for the rich. He thinks those are great. But what he failed to mention was we have cut our pre-K program dramatically in the last 18 months. Okay? We cut away our public health bill that we passed just a few years ago. We took it from $150 million to $40 million. We've watched utility bills rocket upwards while tax breaks for data farms also go upwards. We completely stood silent during a food stamp crisis caused by the national government, didn't react at all. We've cut public school funding over and over. And we strangled local government with Senate Bill 1, which pretends to save taxpayers a lot of money on property tax and will not do that. But I must say the most happy thing I am is that a Republican got up here and talked about an issue. How about that? More of you ought to get up here and make similar mistakes. Thank you.
For discussion, Chair sees none. Representative Arrington, would you like to close?
Thank you. I just want to reiterate, this is about priorities for the state. The priorities that we're hearing from our constituents that they want. Let me take the committee hearing as an example. There were 43 people who managed to get here in that horrible weather. Only 2 of those people supported redistricting in mid-decade. The rest of them, many of them, in fact, mentioned these very 3 issues that they felt were important, that we should be addressing instead of redistricting. So again, I urge you that we think about what our constituents are telling us and pass this amendment. Thank you.
Roll call is in question. Second, will be Graham. When she's open, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Show the chair is voting no. Just a note, no one's done it with any malice or intent, but we try not to recognize other members by name at the mic, so just so it doesn't get away from us. Are there further? We've all members voted. Tell the roll. Roll call is 27 ayes, 67 noes. The motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions? Representative Jackson. House motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended to read as follows. Page 1 between lines 9 and...
For the motion and the second, Chair recognizes Representative Jackson to speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. This is amendment number 3. This amendment would require a public hearing to be held in each congressional district prior to adopting a new map. This would allow all Hoosiers throughout the state time to review the maps, to ask questions, scrutinize them, and give their feedback. Being transparent with these maps give Hoosiers a choice. These new maps did not give Hoosiers a choice. They were released Monday morning. Committee meeting held less than 24 hours the next day. And we're here today now for second reading. Rushing to get these maps approved can show Hoosiers that we are trying to hide something. Are we being dishonest, unethical, or is this being done strictly to create a false impression of good government? Voting for this amendment is your opportunity to show Hoosiers that you value transparency. You value their opinions. You appreciate their votes. And more than anything, their voice is important. In 2021, the election committee went to each and every district. They allowed individuals in each one of your communities to come out and speak, to address issues, concerns, etc. Why deny them that opportunity this time? I ask for your affirmative vote. Thank you.
For discussion on the motion, Representative Clinker, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, no matter what congressional districts we happen to pass, I think it's imperative to be fair to our constituents who are in new districts that we talk about their communities of interest. This is a serious, serious time for many of our constituents who are, as many of us have said, hurting in different ways with affordability of different areas. So I think it's important that we discuss where they're living and what congressional districts that they are in with the new congressional districts. And it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree with the district, we need to let them know what is happening in their area and what communities of interest they might be willing to share with each other. This is a very important amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Excuse me, roll call has been requested and second will be granted. Representative Arrington, speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask you to consider the process we followed in 2021 as compared to this year. As Representative Jackson said, we had hearings in every congressional district. This year, we had one hearing on a horrible weather day. In 2021, thousands of people were able to come conveniently to a location in their congressional district to express their opinion on the maps because they had seen the maps in advance. How much time did we get to see the maps this time? Monday. That's when they were revealed to us and our constituents. Compared to the thousands who came to testify in 2021. As I said in the earlier, my amendment, only 43 people managed to get there. So the lack of transparency, the lack of advance notice about these maps is good reason to say, let's put the brakes on this and follow the recommendation, the amendment that Representative Jackson has proposed. Thank you.
For discussion on the motion, Representative Small, speak on the motion of the men.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, thank you, the author of the amendment. So we did have a public hearing on Tuesday, and 43 people testified. Over 60 had signed up. We're here today. Public reading of this bill. We'll be here tomorrow for a public reading of this bill on third reading. And if it passes tomorrow, the process is going to start over. This is the same process that hundreds of bills go through every year. It's going to go across the hall to the Senate, where there will be 3 readings of this bill, one where the public will have an opportunity to weigh in and offer their opinion. So it's a very similar process to any other bill that we see on just about any other given day, and I would encourage your defeat of the amendment.
For discussion on the motion, Chair sees none. Will author like close?
Respectfully, Representative Smaltz, this is not the same as 2021 when we hosted redistricting maps throughout all congressional districts. People were not expected to come down here with less than 24-hour notice to speak on a bill. They had ample enough time. It was warm outside. They were able to come, to bring their neighbors, to engage in constructive conversation. There was no threats of slipping off the highway and ending up in a fatality, such as the conditions on Tuesday. I personally attended the congressional hearings in my district. There was standing room only. People are concerned about the city, the county, the district in which they live in. I feel if we do not support this amendment, we are telling them that we are not being transparent and we don't care about their feelings or their opinions. And I don't think, at least I know with me, I did not come here to the General Assembly to tell my constituents that or any other Hoosiers. And I pray that neither of you did just the opposite. Thank you.
Roll call has been requested and seconded. Will be granted when the machine is open. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Show the chair is voting no. All the members voted. Tally the roll. Roll call shows 30 ayes, 64 noes. The motion of the men has been defeated. Are there further motions? House motion, Representative Gore.
Thank you.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 12. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended to read as follows.
Further motion is second. The chair recognizes Representative Gore. Speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. You know, over the past several months, while the majority's been engaged in this effort to cheat at the next election, we've heard a very consistent justification from your party, both locally and nationally, for mid-decade gerrymandering. The line goes something like this: Democrats gerrymandered their states, so we have to respond. You repeat it on talk radio, you repeat it in committee, you repeat it in the hallway outside this chamber. Now, this was surprising to me for a few reasons. First, it reminds me of something my 3-year-old would say, which I didn't expect from you all. Second, independent nonpartisan analysis conducted in 2022 after the nation last redrew its maps indicate that nationally, your party benefited the most from gerrymandering to the tune of 2 to 5 seats across the country. But what surprised me the most was just to hear that Republicans are concerned about gerrymandering at all, considering our caucus has countless times introduced efforts to ban partisan gerrymandering in our state before this session. Democrats in Congress have similarly introduced proposals to ban it nationwide and have garnered 0 support from congressional Republicans. So if this whole exercise is about fairness and correcting a national imbalance, my amendment gives you the exact solution you say you want. The solution that the author claimed he wanted just a moment ago. It replaces the underlying bill with a simple directive. The Indiana General Assembly calls upon our congressional delegation and Congress as a whole to outlaw partisan gerrymandering nationwide. If your concern is that Democrats have drawn unfair maps in Illinois, Maryland, or New York, then here's your chance to help end every unfair map in America, blue or red. Because let's be very clear, your party holds the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. Your party holds the majority in the U.S. Senate. Your party holds the White House. And if you support my amendment, or if you won't support it, the question becomes simple. If Republicans truly believe gerrymandering is wrong everywhere, why aren't you fighting to end it everywhere? But I suspect I know why. Because this bill is not a response to national unfairness. It's not a corrective measure. It's not an act of principle. To the contrary, it's a partisan and racial power play designed to appease career politicians in D.C., not Hoosiers. You know, partisanship will come and go. Power will shift back and forth. But the principle that voters, not politicians, should shape our democracy must endure. House Democrats are on the record as believing that and voting accordingly. This amendment, and you're welcome, is your chance to join us on the right side of history. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For discussion on the motion? Roll call has been requested. Second will be granted. Representative Small, speak on the House motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Thank you to the author for his amendment. And I would urge everybody in this body to contact your congressman or woman and urge them to create a set of rules that establishes a level playing field for every state in the union, not just piecemeal, state by state. I'd further say that, you know, this bill has been very carefully crafted to be consistent with our rules, our laws, the state and federal constitution, Supreme Court precedent, that it would cause me great concern to add or change the language at this time. And I would encourage you to defeat the amendment.
For discussion on the motion, Chair sees none. Will the author like close?
I think this is the part where I thank the author for his support. You know, we keep saying we want Congress to end this nationwide. Then model the restraint you're calling upon the Congress to show. If the moment calls for leadership, lead. You don't put out a fire by throwing gasoline on it. Support the amendment, please.
Roll call has been requested and seconded and will be granted. When the machine is open, all those in favor indicate by voting aye. Those opposed will vote no. Show the chair is voting no. All the members voted. Tally the roll. Roll call shows 29 ayes, 66 noes. The motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions? House motion, Representative Shackelford.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 15. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 10.
Further motion is second. Chair recognizes Representative Shackelford. Speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've gotten off track a little bit. We haven't been here in a while. So it's like coming back from summer break. But this amendment that I'm presenting, I have 5 key points that I want to make sure that I cover with this amendment to require a district-specific analysis. Point number 1, I do not support this redistricting process by any means, but if the majority assists on forcing new maps, the least we can do is require a district-by-district analysis to prevent discrimination. This amendment acknowledges reality. It does not delay the process. It does not block the bill. It simply requires the General Assembly to look at factual demographic evidence before enacting something that will shape political power for a decade. The majority should at least verify that the maps do not violate the federal law or harm any minority communities. 2, this amendment protects Black and Latino Hoosiers who are most vulnerable to discriminatory mapmaking. Redistricting has real consequences for communities of color. A district-specific analysis ensures we are not diluting our vote or undermining our representation. 3, this is a safeguard against unintended discrimination created by a rushed, opaque process. When maps are drawn behind closed doors and pushed through quickly, mistakes happen. Those mistakes fall hardest on marginalized communities. A required analysis is a guardrail. 4, this actually protects Indiana from a major legal headaches that the majority is choosing to create. If these maps violate the Voting Rights Act, they will be challenged. Courts will intervene. Taxpayers will pay the price. This amendment tries to give us a chance to catch problems before they explode into litigation. And lastly, 5, transparency matters, especially when public trust is already shaken. Hoosiers deserve to see the data behind these decisions. They deserve proof that these maps are not discriminatory. This amendment provides a small measure of accountability. In closing, I just want to be very clear. This amendment does not support or legitimize the new map. It does not endorse the process, but this is going to happen no matter how many Hoosiers speak out in opposition. Then at least we can do is make these districts, make sure they're not discriminatory. This is not a partisan ask. It is a responsible one. It puts fairness and legality over political experience and performance. This amendment simply forces us to look at the data before we finalize boundaries that will affect millions of people. We owe our Black and Latino Hoosiers that basic level of protection. Our voters deserve that transparency. I ask for your support of this amendment and request a roll call.
Roll call has been requested and second will be granted. For discussion on the motion, Representative Small, speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I'd like to thank the author for her amendment, but I just want to be clear that House Bill 1032 has been carefully crafted for political performance and remaining consistent with our rules, laws, the state and federal Constitution, Supreme Court of the United States precedent, that it would cause me great concern if we were to add or change language at this time. I would appreciate your defeat of the amendment.
For discussion on the motion to amend, Representative Pierce, speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, in relation to the House. I rise in support of the amendment. And I think I need to remind people that we have a legal obligation to consider the potential negative impacts on the voting power of minorities. It's the Voting Rights Act. So the law as we speak today, maybe it's going to change, we'll find out. But as of today, we have an obligation to ensure that we don't dilute the voting power of minorities. And we had testimony in committee that that data was not considered in any way. And I understand that's the legal strategy, because if you can consider this just to be a political gerrymander, then you don't have to worry about lawsuits on racial gerrymandering. But the truth is, you're having a very profound impact on the minority voters of Marion County and up in Lake County. You are essentially here in Indianapolis carving up the minority voters in a way that dilutes their voting power. And that's probably a violation of the Voting Rights Act. So all this amendment is really saying is, before we put these maps in place, let's have a timeout and take a look at that issue. And you know what? We could have some legal scholars come in and talk to us about what the Voting Act requires, whether or not the things that are happening in this map actually are diluting minority voting power to the point where it's a violation. Maybe they'll come back and say it's all good. I kind of doubt it, but it's possible. So I don't think we lose anything by having an amendment that simply says, before the maps go into effect, let's make sure that they're actually legal. I think that would be a good thing. I urge you to support the amendment.
For discussion on the motion to amend, Chair sees none. Will the author like close? Question is on the adoption of the motion to amend. When the machine is open, all those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Show the chair is voting no. Representative Hatcher, would you like to vote? While the members voted, tally the roll. Roll call shows 29 ayes, 66 noes. The motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions? House motion, Representative Shackelford.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 10. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended to read as follows.
For the motion, the second, the chair recognizes Representative Shackelford to speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. So since we could not get that amendment passed and make sure that we have a district-specific data, this amendment is going to require a racial ethnic equity impact note from LSA. And there's just 6 key points that I want to make sure that I hit on this amendment. For one, this amendment will strengthen transparency and accountability. Voters deserve to understand how major policy decisions affect different communities. Requiring an equity impact note gives us a clear, factual analysis of how the new redistricting statute will affect Black and Latino Hoosiers. 2, this is not about politics. It is clearly about data. The amendment does not change the map. It does not direct outcomes. It simply asks our nonpartisan Legislative Services Agency to publish an analysis. LSA already produces fiscal impact statements and technical memos. This is a natural extension of their nonpartisan work. 3, redistricting affects representation and resources. When we withdraw congressional districts, we shape who has a voice in Washington and who receives federal investment. Understanding whether any group is impacted disproportionately is essential for a fair process. This protects the legislature from unintended consequences, as number 4. A racial and ethnic equity impact note allows us to identify issues before they lead to litigation or federal scrutiny. It helps us ensure compliance with the Voting Rights Act and avoid costly legal challenges down the road. 5, this amendment increases public trust. Hoosiers want confidence that redistricting is done responsible. Making this analysis public shows we have nothing to hide. It invites transparency rather than suspicion. And lastly, the requirement is temporary and is targeted. The note must be prepared once by July 1st, 2026. It expires at the end of the year. This is a limited, reasonable request that does not create ongoing bureaucracy. And in closing, The legislature should know who is affected by its decisions. Black and Latino communities often experience the greatest effects of redistricting changes. This amendment ensures we consider their experiences and do not leave them behind. Additionally, good policy requires good information. If the House wants to make informed decisions, we need a clear picture of how this law impacts communities across Indiana. This amendment gives us that information. I ask for your support and request a roll call.
Roll call has been requested. Second will be granted when the machine is open. Question, I'm sorry. Further discussion on the motion. Representative Harris, speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. You know, this amendment and the previous amendment are all about information and making sure that everything is transparent, accurate, done fairly. When you look at where I am in Northwest Indiana, when you look at the splitting up of 4 different congressional districts here in Indianapolis and Marion County, we know this is, you can look and read. And when you talk about the minority communities, heavy minority communities in both of these areas, there's going to be an impact in the way the new maps are. So let's take a look at that, make sure it's done correct, make sure that legal issues are not in place, are not going to be issues. It's just information, it's transparency. I don't see how either of those are a bad thing. I ask for your support on the amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion on the, sorry. Further discussion on the motion. Representative Small, speak on the House motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, going to sound a little bit like a broken record up here, but really put a lot of effort into House Bill 1032 to make sure that it was written for political performance, that it was consistent with our rules, our laws, the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of the State of Indiana, and importantly, the Supreme Court of the United States precedents. It would cause me great concern if we were to add or change any language at this time, and I would urge your defeat of the amendment.
Further discussion on the motion. Representative Leader G. Quinn, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Very quickly, I appreciate what the author says and with regards to his intent and what they try to do. But if you don't mind, we just want a second pair of eyes to look at these things and do an analysis to see where we are. And so I don't think that's really, frankly, too much to ask for whatsoever. So I would urge you to support for Representative Shackelford's amendment. I think it's very good. I actually think it really needs to be done. And appreciate your support on this amendment. Thank you.
First discussion on the motion. Representative Shackelford, would you like to close?
So I understand the strategy of making sure that you're staying focused on political performance. That strategy, unfortunately, overlooks the other piece of the racial performance and is overlooking that this bill may violate the Voters' Rights Act and the U.S. Constitution. Now, as we go on with this process, I'm not going to give up talking about the racial impact of this legislation, because that's still a legal issue that we need to take under consideration. It is a representation issue that we definitely need to take under consideration, especially when you're talking about Marion County and this county being divided into 4 congressional districts and these minority neighborhoods being cracked open. So you will see us coming back talking about this, and I hope you take it under consideration and vote for the amendment.
Roll call has been requested and seconded and will be granted when the machine is open. All those in favor of the amendment vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Show the chair is voting no. If all the members voted, tally the roll. Roll call shows 27 ayes, 66 noes. The motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions? House motion, Representative Gore.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 13. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended.
Excuse me, you've heard the motion and the second. The chair recognizes Representative Gore to speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Over the last week, and really even before that, my phone, my inbox, my social media have been flooded, absolutely flooded with Hoosiers opposing this gerrymandering effort. But I didn't expect this, but I also noticed a lot of them were asking for one simple thing: let us vote on it. And these aren't just Democrats. They're Republicans, independents, young people, retirees, suburban moms, veterans, people who work hard, pay their taxes, raise families, and believe that they deserve a say before the political boundaries of their government are rewritten in the middle of a decade. You know, poll after poll has shown the same thing. Hoosiers do not want mid-decade gerrymandering. They don't want politicians picking their voters. They don't want the rules rewritten to benefit whoever happens to be in power today. They want fairness, they want stability, and they want transparency. If this chamber truly believes this redistricting plan is popular, if members sincerely believe that this is what Indiana wants, then this amendment should be the easiest vote you take all session, because all it does is give the people a voice. My amendment says that before any new redistricting plan can be enacted, the plan must go on the ballot as a public question. Plain and simple. The proposed map, shown to voters. The question, shall this redistricting plan be enacted? And then Hoosiers, not politicians, get to help decide. That's it. That is the whole thing. If this plan is as necessary and as widely embraced as its supporters argue, then it should pass overwhelmingly. And you'll walk away with the one thing this process desperately lacks, which is legitimacy. But if you refuse to let voters weigh in, if you say they can't be trusted or they're too stupid to understand or they should simply accept whatever piece of garbage we hand them, then that reveals something else entirely. That maybe this plan isn't as popular as you say, that maybe the public wouldn't bless it, and that maybe the only way to pass it is to avoid letting Hoosiers have a vote on it at all. Colleagues, Hoosiers have been loud and clear. They want a voice. They want a vote. And frankly, they deserve one. If you're confident in this map, if you believe this is good for Indiana, then you should have no objection to letting the people confirm it. And if you're not willing to let them, then the problem isn't my amendment, the problem is your bill. I urge your support for my amendment, and I want a roll call. Let the people of Indiana decide. They're the ones we serve. They're the ones who have to live with this. Thank you.
Roll call has been requested and second. Will be granted. Machine is open for discussion on the motion. Representative Small to speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, thank you, the author, for his amendment. I want to remind everybody in this room that you are the voice of your constituents. You are the vote of your constituents. We are elected to come here and do the work of the people. We're not a state that has referendums. We don't put things out to public question other than constitutional matters. You are the voice. You are the vote. And I'd encourage the defeat of this amendment.
For discussion on the motion to amend, Representative Gore, would you like to close?
You know, it is our responsibility to do this. And nothing in my amendment changes that. You still draw the map. You still vote on it. The people simply get help in the final say. If you're confident in your product, let the voters see it and bless it. And yes, we are the voice of our constituents here. But when you engage in this cheating scheme, nobody who elected you in the last campaign cycle suspected you would be doing this. They did not have that in mind when they voted for you. They did not send you here to do it. So let them have a say in it. You can't claim a mandate for something voters never knew was coming. Put it to a vote. Support the amendment. Thank you.
Roll call is requested and second. Will be granted. Machines open. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed vote no. Show the chair is voting no. If all the members voted, tell the roll. Roll call was 28 ayes, 66 noes. The motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions? House motion, Dr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hold on, Dr. Smith.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 9. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended to read as
You've heard the motion. The second, the chair recognizes Dr. Smith to speak on the motion.
Thank you. I guess I'm a bit anxious. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I think whether you're for this bill or you're against it, you must recognize that this bill, if it's passed, will cause some financial strain on the affected districts. This amendment that I'm offering is attempting to address that issue. What it calls for is the county clerk to work with the various officials of the county to itemize a report dealing with the expenditures necessary to implement this change. It requires them to address these areas of expenditures, the updating of the election processes, updating election material, informing the public of the new congressional district boundaries and wages for overtime and temporary hires. And that it further requires the state of Indiana to reimburse through the treasurer's office, the county. I ask for your support.
State your point, Representative Zimmerman. Chair, Representative Zimmerman, his point of order is that amendment number 9 violates Rule 80. The chair will stand, the House will stand in recess as we consider the point of order. Consideration, the chair finds a point well taken. Chair request to repeal the second, request of the appealing of the chair. A second's been offered. Please put the appeal down in writing. And Representative Karakoff.
The chair recognizes Representative Johnson for appeal of the ruling of the chair.
House. In a moment, the majority is going to come up and say the reason this isn't germane is because it has an appropriation in it. And that's true. I can't refute that the word appropriation exists in this amendment. But I can tell you that this rule that we tend to apply, that an amendment can't be considered if it has the word appropriation in it, is not in our rule book. It is based solely on precedent. But I think we can all agree on both sides of this argument that this is an unprecedented moment. We are here on December 4th. We are proposing maps in the middle of the decade. This is the first time since I've been here that the majority has so openly said the whole purpose of what they're doing is to screw Democrats. So I think maybe under these circumstances, we ought to consider that casting some votes on how we would fund this is important. Here's the facts. HB 1032 creates an extraordinary unfunded mandate. Funding its implementation is absolutely and should be germane. It imposes massive immediate statewide implementation obligations on counties, redrawing every precinct affected, redesigning ballots, updating GIS systems, reprogramming voting equipment, updating poll books, conducting voter outreach to make sure they understand what's happening.
Representative, could you please speak to the appeal, not
I'm
the content?
absolutely speaking to
Thank
the
you.
appeal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And coordinating election timelines. These are not abstract requirements. They are mandatory tasks with real operational consequences. Under Mason, Section 402, amendments are germane if they relate to the practical implementation of the bill's subject matter. That is exactly what this is. Please join me in overturning the ruling of the chair.
Further discussion? Representative Zimmerman to speak on the appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Representative Johnson is correct. This is an appropriation. This is an amendment that appropriates money out of the state treasury. This bill has nothing to do with appropriations. It has to do with redistricting. And I will just note, it is previous rulings of the Speaker of the House on both sides of the aisle that this is not germane to this bill. I'd ask you to uphold the ruling of the chair.
Further discussion? Chair sees none. The question is on, shall the ruling of the chair be sustained? And I vote supports the ruling of the chair. No vote supports the appeal. Record the chair voting aye. Have all the members voted? Tally the roll. Roll call shows 63 voting aye, 29 voting nay. The ruling of the chair is sustained. For the further amendments, Representative Delaney, House motion.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 17. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032.
We have a motion and a second. Representative Delaney, you're recognized to present your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This motion, and there's three that are related, I'll try to do them in order. This is motion 17, is designed to deal with the fact that we're supposed to legislate when we redistrict, we're supposed to legislate consistent with the community of interest of our citizens. We don't redistrict for the sole and only purpose of suiting the whims of one political party. A person who must apparently remain unnamed has told the world that this draft map process is only about politics. Therefore, it can't be accused of affecting race or any other issue. No issue of interest to the public is involved. Let me repeat that. That's the position of the unnamed person. No interest of the public is involved. Only the interest of one political party. And by the way, nothing about the county chairs who might not like the district. They're part of the political party. No problem about the Republican voters who might not like these new districts. Those interests are not considered. The only interest that's considered is that of somebody in Washington and unnamed people. We have effectively a vow from one person that I didn't think about anything except partisan advantage. You know, if that person, unnamed person, didn't think about race or cultural or geography, he's really not doing his job. He only thought about one thing. He didn't think about trade, economics, didn't think about voting trends, didn't think about our regions, didn't think about our rivers or our lakes, didn't think about anything except one thing. That's quite a miracle. It used to be the other way. When I was in school, the teacher said, Delaney, you're supposed to be thinking about history. Could you not think about sex for just 10 minutes? I never got there. It didn't work. Okay. We have flipped that now, that it's now monomaniacal. You should change the name of this party over here to the monomaniacal party. So my little amendment just says that communities of interest do matter, that issues other than what one guy in Washington wants do matter. And this language is taken from legislation in other states and from common discourse. So what things do I think you ought to look at? You ought to look at social, cultural, and economic interests. Gee, when you do these districts, did you think about the utility companies? Maybe. Did you think about the steel mills? The steel mills in Lake County are now going to have a representative who's also from Wabash County. They don't use steel in Wabash County. They use wood. They're in a different environment. But that can't be considered. Geography. Someone else, I hope, will address the issue of what appears to me to be a complete attempt to ignore our lake and our Ohio River, which are central. Just ignore them. That doesn't matter. Oh, I buried on my list. I'll admit it. I got it on here in the list of things you can think about. You can think about race, ethnic, and national origin. I'm sorry to bring that up in this body. That's what the hell we do in America. I happen to live in the 7th district. Guess what? It's 48% today minority. Okay? And you know what? I've survived. I've gotten through it. Okay? But we ought to think about that. And we ought to think about what those people think when they feel they've been fairly represented by someone, but now they can't be represented by that person. They got to be represented by some part of 4 other people. So, governmental interests, political interests. One of the things I get a kick out about this map, we have a bunch of important former auto kind of towns, Marion, Muncie, Kokomo. They're all quite near each other, and they're all medium-sized cities. They have a lot in interest politically, a lot in interest economically. Tear them up, send them off to other places. God forbid a congressman should focus on the auto industry. So anyway, I got this list, and all I'm saying is that any proposed amendment to a congressional district map must consider the impact of the amendment on any community of interest. Not give into it, not overweigh it, but for God's sakes, don't ignore it. Openly saying over and over, the unnamed person says over and over that he thought of nothing except partisan political interest, really national political interest. Now, let me assure you that if this bill goes through and similar ones go through in other states, we're not going to have any Congress people who give a damn about any of these interests. They were not put there because they were solid on those interests. They will not be there because they care about local government. They will not be there because they care about rivers or lakes. They will not be there because they care about minority groups, God forbid. They'll be there because they're there to be a power voice for one idea and one person. That's a destruction of the entire relationship between our congressional delegation and our people. That's what you're doing. And you're saying that should happen all over the country because that's the game you're playing. So I ask you to approve amendment number 17. Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call has been requested and will be granted. Representative Dan Chesser. Correction, Representative Novak, you're recognized to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Bear with me, this is my first time. So I rise in support of the amendment. The first congressional district covers all of the lakeshore right now. And Lake Michigan, all of Lake Michigan, and our only national park. The new maps will split this coverage and it'll be a division of the largest natural resource that we have in the state of Indiana. Being the newest house of the member of this house, I want to share an observation so far. I've met a lot of very nice representatives on both sides. And when I was sworn in, I was told you're now the Honorable Representative Randy Novak. What is happening here is absolutely not honorable, and it does not represent the people of Indiana. Thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Dan Chesser to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members of the House. I'm a little distracted, although I rise in support of Rep. Delaney's bill. I'm a little distracted that he couldn't think about not think about sex for 10 minutes while he was in high school, but I do appreciate his stance on this nonetheless. Let's talk a minute about communities of interest. And communities of interest can come in a lot of different ways. They can be bound together socially, bound together culturally, and as we know, bound together economically. And that's what I want to speak to. The Braun administration has recently spent hundreds of thousands of dollars studying regions, economic regions, ready regions. And the whole purpose is, how do we get people to rally around common projects that will be good for them and their economy? The Workforce Development Department is doing something similar right now. Public testimony just closed last month on workforce regions, recognizing that people who work within the same geographic area are going to have common interests. In the proposed district that I am in, our economic district, or our workforce district, in order to be in collaboration with this congressional district, people in Jeffersonville would have to work in Speedway in order to have the same common interests. And that doesn't happen. Instead, we work within our region. We work and share those economic common interests with those who are closer to our neighbors and have more in common. Rep. Delaney mentioned the Ohio River corridor. That is why a lot of the southern Indiana communities were founded, and that is why I believe that we all need to be together, or at least recognized as a common region. And when we talk about communities of interest, I want to really go back to the root word of community. 2 words: common unity. That's what creates community. And without community, we really have nothing that ties us together. So I would support Representative Delaney's amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Smoltz to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, thanks to the author for his amendment. I'm going to walk everybody down history lane for just a moment. I want you all to think back to 1787. It's May. I mean, there's probably a couple of people that were here then. But the Founding Fathers met in Philadelphia in 1787. And one of the biggest dilemmas that they had to resolve was representation. How are we going to represent big states and little states? It was one of the biggest fights. I'm sure all of us remember from elementary school, proportional representation, big states, little states. And the plan was hatched by Roger Sherman from Connecticut, that the proportional representation would be allowed, pleasing the big states, but it would be in the lower house. And the states would have representation through the Senate. And those senators, if you remember, were elected by the General Assemblies. Very partisan. Senators came and went as General Assemblies changed hands. And in 1913, that all changed with the 17th Amendment. And what I've been wondering through all of this is, if we're not seeing some sort of natural political correction, as states, long before Indiana, states have written their districts based on partisan performance. Look at Massachusetts, 9-0, 40% Republican. California, 50-2. Also about 40% Republican, maybe a little bit more. Connecticut, the irony of it all, that's where Roger Sherman came from, 5-0. About 40% Republican. So what I'm wondering is, if what we're not seeing is the new norm until Congress acts and Congress levels the field for every state, that this is the norm that we're in. And this bill was very carefully crafted for partisan performance only. And adding any language to it like that is in the amendment would cause me great concern, and I would urge its defeat.
Is there further discussion? Representative Pierce to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies in the House. I just need to respond to this opposition to the amendment based on what seems to be the idea that two wrongs make a right, right? So the underlying argument is the horrible Democrats were the evil gerrymanderers, and they have victimized the Republicans who are only the righteous and have drawn all their maps without any political considerations. I mean, that's basically the argument we're hearing here, right? That's the argument we're hearing. And it's ironic that Massachusetts keeps getting held up as like the beacon of unfairness. You know, the interesting thing about the Massachusetts maps, if you go back and look at it, because the Brennan Center actually went and looked at every state that controlled redistricting and how those maps got drawn, all 50 states. Massachusetts is really curious because Democrats had a veto-proof majority there, and they had a Republican governor. And you know what? The Republican governor signed those maps. And I think it's because the courts kind of got involved a little bit, so the Democrats had to maybe make some adjustments for that. But instead of just like powering through in Massachusetts and just having their veto-proof majority kind of jam them through, they reached an agreement with their Republican governor at the time. If you look across all the states that have drawn their maps, the states where Republicans had enough control, enough power to basically mandate what the maps are going to be and not compromise, they drew Republicans 41% of the House seats across the country back in 2021. A number of states had independent commissions, independent of the General Assembly. They drew about 19% of the House seats across the country. So if you put those two together, 60% of the House seats in 2021 were drawn by Republicans or independent commission, not Democrats. And then you had a whole another set of states where you had bipartisan commissions with both parties on it, and you had courts involved in a number of states, and it's a little harder to figure out what went on there. In some cases, the Democrats came out ahead, other states, the Republicans, the court seemed to be on their side a little more, or the commission maybe skewed a little bit more that way. So you can't say it's totally objective there, but that's 27% of the House seats came out of a court or some kind of bipartisan commission. So how many seats were drawn by these horrible Democrats across the country, even those big blue states who victimized the Republicans? How much? How many seats? 11%. These aren't my numbers. This is the Brennan Center. Go look it up, read their data, see if you want to dispute it, but it's pretty straightforward. And so the underlying pretext to save a president from having a Congress that may actually exercise some oversight and begin to look into what he's been up to, that pretext that we have to save the victimized Republicans from the national Democrats is laughable. It's not supported by the data, and you really ought to stop making that argument because it doesn't stand up. And you know what? Even if it did, it's like, you know, your mom would be here saying like, two wrongs don't make a right. How many times do we hear that when we were a kid? Just because your brother did something wrong doesn't mean you should be able to do it wrong too. And so for those reasons, we ought to support this amendment. And we ought to change our course. And we ought to be thinking about the impact of these maps on the people. I mean, it's really quite stunning that we have a body that appears willing to say we are only singularly, absolutely focused on our own political goals and aims and aiding our own party. And you know what? Any other factor is not important. All this amendment says is let's make some other factors important.
Further discussion? Chair sees none. Would the author of the amendment like to close? He shall.
Well, I don't want to get into a historical debate with he who shall not be named, so I will not. But let me say this. One thing I do remember from the debates at the time of the Constitution was that a large number of the founders were very worried about the role of political parties. The approach that's being taken on this Bill 1032 is a strong justification for that concern. And parties are being turned into the tool of one man who will run the whole system. Do you notice? The only reason we're here in December is because one man representing one political party wants us here. There is no other reason. So nothing else was considered, in fact, by the proponents of this bill. I'm asking that we pass a measure that says that the legislature has to consider these issues, not in a very prescriptive or detailed way, and not giving weight or percentages to each one. But if you vote against this, you're saying, I can only think about one thing, and it ain't sex. Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of the amendment. All those, when the roll call was requested and granted, the question is on the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor, when the machine is open, will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no.
If all the members voted, tally the roll. Roll call shows 28 ayes, 64 noes. The amendment has been defeated. Are there further motions? Representative Delaney, House motion.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 18. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032.
Heard the motion and the second. The chair recognizes Representative Delaney speak on the motion to amend.
Okay. I'm not calling anybody's bluff, but I want to know who the people were who didn't think about anything other than political power. Who were they? We haven't heard the single name of any organization or individual other than a suggestion, an inference that he who must not be named somehow had a role in it. I don't know that that's even been said. I haven't heard the speaker say, I haven't heard any representative say, I haven't heard the governor say, this thing came out of the sky and fell upon us. Well, who was up in the sky preparing it? Don't you think the public has a right to know this? Because we sure know it wasn't written by a committee of 70 House Republicans. That we know. It probably wasn't even made in this state. That we know. Who wrote it? That we don't know. What kind of a process is that? Can you imagine? No judge wrote it, apparently. Who wrote it? Who owns this? Who's the author of this? And by the way, I should probably not mention this. There is a tiny chance that this map doesn't work out well for the Republican Party. Well, who would we blame? Who will you blame if it blows up? I'd like the names. I'd like to have a list. We could put it up here on the wall and we could discuss it. But we're being denied that unless you vote for this amendment. It will be the secret districting. The secret monomaniacal districting. I ask you to vote for Amendment 18.
Further discussion on the motion to amend. Roll call has been requested and seconded. Representative Small, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, thanks again to the author of the amendment. I said it in committee. The author must not have watched the committee meeting because I said we had help from and including the National Republican Redistricting Trust.
Speak on the mic, Representative.
Let's say it again.
Yeah,
National.
Representative Smalls, can you start again? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I just was wondering if the author had had time to watch the committee hearing from Tuesday because I was clear when I said that we had help from the National Republican Redistricting Trust, LSA, staff members here. I worked on it. We all worked on it to some extent or the other. We don't, as we're having bills as a rule, require the author to say, I worked with, say, the Farm Bureau on this bill. You can if you want. I would be very concerned that adding language of this type to the bill at this point would cause us some concern. It was written to be consistent with our Constitution, our laws, our rules, the Constitution of the United States, and the Supreme Court of the United States. So that's who helped write it. I appreciate your defeat of the amendment.
For discussion on the motion, Chair sees none. Representative Delaney, would you like to close?
I wonder if the Republican Trust, whatever it is, do they sell Bitcoin? Do they take political contributions? Do they go to Saudi Arabia? Do they take free airplanes? Who are these people? And by the way, I noticed there was no mention about the White House. No suggestion that the White House had any role in this. So why don't we just put the list? I don't need the name of everybody who's in this trust. I don't need the name of everybody who's in the White House. You can just say, POTUS. I like that. That's a great thing all the politicians use, POTUS. Put down POTUS. But tell us who did this to us. And let me put that again. Tell us who's doing this to us. Thank you. Please vote for the
Moment. Roll call's been requested. Second will be granted. When the machine is open, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed vote no. Show the chair is voting no. While the members voted, tell the roll. Roll call shows 29 ayes, 65 noes. Motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions? House motion, Representative Porter.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 8. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended to read as follows. Delete every...
Further motion and second. Chair recognizes Representative Porter speak on the motion to amend.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House. This is amendment, I believe, number 8. And we can put all this to rest, ladies and gentlemen. What we're asking is that we're urging the bipartisan legislative council to look at this House Bill 1032 and just put it to a summer study committee in 2026. We're already doing work for 2026 right now. Let's move this on to 2026 for a summer study committee so we can really do this thing adequately and take this off the agenda. Thank you.
For discussion on the motion to amend, Representative roll call has been requested and second will be granted. Representative Small, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. So, there's a process in place to get a study committee, and I would encourage the author of the amendment to follow that. And because there is already a process in place to get on the list to, have your concern heard by legislative council for summer study.
My apologies, Representative Smalls. You were correct. Go ahead.
Good, because I was really going to be lost for a second there because I thought I was on the right one. So based on that, I would really appreciate if we did not incorporate the language into the bill at this time. We really are focusing on political performance. We're really focusing on being consistent with the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of Indiana, Supreme Court of the United States, court precedents, our rules, and our laws. And I would appreciate if you would not support the amendment.
For discussion on the motion, Chair sees none. Would the author like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, you're right. We do have a process. And the process is, let's look into the council and let's look at it. Let's talk about it some more. It is a bipartisan council that everybody that's on that council, they can vote yay or nay. And most of the times, a lot of times it's yay and a lot of times it's a nay. So let's put it forth to our leadership that we appoint, that we have here in the House and across the way, and say, okay, thou shalt do this and do it adequately and effortlessly. Thank you. Vote.
Roll call.
Aye. Thank you.
Yep. Roll call has been requested and second will be granted when the machine is open. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed vote no. Show the chair is voting no. Representative Mosley, would you like to vote? If all the members. If all the members vote, the tally roll. Roll call says 29 ayes, 64 noes. The motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions, Representative Porter? House motion.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 16. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032 be amended to read as follows. Page 1 between lines 9 and 10.
For the motion in the second, Chair recognizes Representative Porter to speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House. This motion, I think it's 16, basically seeks this, that the governor, who has made their comment on the second floor and has not done other things, that they weigh in on House Bill 1032 and look at it specifically from the Voting Rights Act, specifically section number 2. And there are all the other pertinent federal laws and regulations. The governor, as we all know, has a critical part in the creation of the laws here in the state of Indiana. And any law, including proposed House Bill 1032, cannot become law without the governor's signature, or he lets it lay there and it becomes law without his signature. We need to know if our governor, this governor, or his team has analyzed the federal legal ramifications of this law, whether or not it's legally sound at the federal level, even though someone asked from the White House. The recent history show that legally, ladies and gentlemen, legally suspect redistricting has nullified by the federal courts. So what we're asking is that this governor does continue to have some conversation with individuals in regards to this. Ask the governor to weigh in on 1032. Is it legally sound on section 2 of the Voting Rights Act? That's all that this does. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Roll call has been requested. The second will be granted. Further discussion on the motion to amend. Representative Smalls, speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. With all due respect to the folks on the second floor in the governor's office, this is the job of the courts to give us that information and not the job of the executive branch. And based on that, I would appreciate your defeat of the amendment.
For discussion on the motion to amend, Representative Porter, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I think he's made a few comments in regards to this bill. I don't think he's been silent. So no matter what is said from the previous person, the second floor has made it be known what their desire is. So here we go again, having someone throw the brick through the glass window and try to hide their hand. Vote yes in regards to this amendment. Thank you.
Roll call has been requested and seconded. Will be granted when the machine is open. All those in favor of the amendment vote aye. Those opposed vote no. All the members voted, tally the roll. Roll call shows 27 ayes, 65 noes. The motion to amend has been defeated. Are there further motions? Representative Porter, House motion.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 21. Mr. Speaker, I move.
Heard the motion. A second. The chair recognizes Representative Porter. Speak on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House. This motion basically simply requires that the Secretary of State provide information on how proposed House Bill 1032 would specifically impact the office when it comes to money, staff, and how they will implement the provisions of this proposed legislation. Legislative Services says that the task allegedly for this will be accomplished with existing resources that the Secretary of State does have, but it does not address in any way whatsoever what may happen in regards to this bill being passed. I sit on the Budget Committee, and this past September, the Secretary of State came in and asked for augmentation, ladies and gentlemen. Hear me loud and clear. The Secretary of State came back and asked for augmentation, moving money in September for his office to do work, $426,000. Now, we had just passed a budget for them early on. Then we come back a few months later and ask for augmentation. So now what does that mean? That means that even though they got that money earlier, got a budget, and they came back and asked for more money, will they need more money to quote unquote make this happen? So that's basically what it is. Came back to the Budget Committee. Budget Committee put it out there, gave them the dollars. And so our whole concern is that what else is in there that may need to happen in regards to the Secretary of State attempting to do their work. So even as LSA says that House Bill 1032 can be done with existing resources, we have found out even 2 or 3 months ago that that is not the case. So I'm very skeptical in regards to this, and we need to have the Secretary of State come and tell us potentially what that really means. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader.
For discussion on the motion to amend, Representative roll call has been requested. Second will be granted. Representative Small, speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Thanks to the author of the amendment. I would be much more comfortable as we go through this process and the fiscal statement provided to us by the Nonpartisan Legislative Services Agency would give us a good idea of what this is going to cost. As it goes through the process, I expect that this will get more refined. We'll get more information. And at this time, I would appreciate your defeat of the amendment.
For discussion on the motion to amend, Chair sees none. Question. Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Porter, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House. What do you think about what I just said? The budget that was passed a few months ago, he came in and said what they needed. Then 4 months later, they come in and ask for more. Now, I know when we do bills, for those of you who haven't been here as long as I have, you always ask what's the fiscal impact. Usually proposed legislation has a fiscal impact. Don't see it, don't know it. LSA says it doesn't. I wholeheartedly disagree with LSA, because I've been around for a while, I understand. So, we can talk about that, but we need to understand what the Secretary of State may need, and we need to understand from the fiscal standpoint of staff and the work to even implement something expeditiously, because it's going to be real fast. What does that mean? How much money are they going to have to need in regards to, quote unquote, make this happen? So with that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I ask you to accept this piece of this amendment because it is for the greater good and it also is for transparency. Thank you very much.
Roll call's been requested and second and will be granted. When the machine is open, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed vote no. Of all the members voted, tally the roll. Roll call shows 29 ayes, 63 noes. The amendment has been defeated. Are there further motions? Representative Bartlett, House motion.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 2. Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 1032.
For the motion and the second, the chair recognizes Representative Bartlett to speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Let me say this. If we are going to push these maps through without really thinking or caring about the consequences for the Hoosiers that we were elected to represent, then the least we can do is ensure local counties and governments are not burdened by the cost of the mid-decade redistricting. Republicans claim to be the party of fiscal responsibility, and this amendment is simply requiring the state to take accountability for unnecessary costs being proposed by the political scheme. During Tuesday's committee hearing, it was admitted several times that the map proposal was simply for political performance. I do think local government and counties should have to pay the price for a blatant Republican power grab. The cost associated with this new congressional map varies, but can range from thousands to millions of dollars for a state. Many of these costs become the burden of our localities. We're taking the unprecedented step of mid-decade redistricting solely for political gain, and it's not fair to make our counties and local governments pay for something unnecessary as this. My amendment says that the county clerks would contact the comptroller with an itemized list of their expenses, and they'd be reimbursed for it. I urge your support.
Thank you, Representative Bartlett. State your point, Representative Zimmerman. Representative Zimmerman's point of order is that amendment number 2 violates Rule 80 on germaneness. The chair will put the House in recess as we consider the point of order. Finds a point well taken. Appeal, the ruling of chair has been appealed and seconded. Will be reduced to writing.
Chair recognizes Representative Johnson on the appeal of the ruling of the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Again, majority is going to come up and talk about appropriations. I've got more layers than that. I've got a different argument this time than I did last time. Without funding, counties cannot perform the duties HB 1032 requires, and the bill fails to operate as intended. Under Mason's Manual sections 403 and 406, amendments are germane when they are necessary to give, quote, full effect to the bill, closely related to the, quote, machinery of government needed to implement the act, or essential for the act's administrative feasibility. A bill that cannot be implemented without resources necessarily authorizes amendments that ensure implementation, even if they include an appropriation. This is not adding new subject matter as Rule 80 discusses. It is supplying missing operational capacity within the same subject. Elections are uniquely sensitive. Underfunding increases legal exposure and threatens compliance with federal law. If counties misapply district lines because they lack staff or resources, that's a litigation risk. If voter materials or poll books are wrong, that could result in disenfranchisement and potential Voting Rights Act violations. If public education is insufficient, confusion, turnout suppression, and errors at the precinct level would be rampant. Therefore, proper funding is part of the same subject matter as redistricting itself because it ensures the state's plan complies with the federal and constitutional framework elections operate under. This ties amendment germaneness to legal compliance, which Mason's manual treats as directly connected to subject matter. I'd ask you to join me in overturning the ruling of the chair.
Further discussion? Representative Zimmerman to speak on the ruling of the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I will be reciting from our rules, House Rule 9, concerning all questions not provided for by the Indiana State Constitution and statutes. The rules of the Indiana House of Representatives or joint rules of the Indiana House of Representatives and Indiana Senate, the latest edition of Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure, and previous rulings of the Indiana Speaker of the House shall be regarded as parliamentary guides of the House. As I indicated with an earlier motion to amend, this amendment number 2 makes an appropriation to this bill where this bill does not. It concerns redistricting. And as per previous rulings of the Speaker of the House, this amendment is not germane to the bill. I'd ask you to uphold the ruling of the chair.
The question is, shall the ruling of the chair be sustained? An aye vote supports the ruling of the chair. No vote supports the appeal. Record the chair voting aye when the machine is open. Have all the members voted? Tally the roll. Roll call shows 65 voting aye, 27 voting nay. The ruling of the chair is sustained. Are there further amendments? Representative Harris, House motion.
House Bill 1032, Amendment 7. Mr. Speaker, I move.
You've heard motion and a second. Representative Harris, you're recognized to present your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. So the governor called us in for a special session. That's his ability, that's his power. I, amongst many others, said, whoa, we're going to spend a lot of taxpayer dollars. We came back for abortion. It cost $240,000 for us to be here. I'm going to say it was a pretty smooth move to say, no, we're not doing special session. We're going to start 2026 session early in December of 2025, somewhat taking away that argument of those tax dollars being spent on us coming back in being unnecessary. But there will still be expenses to this process if it passes. Expenses that we will figure out, expenses that will be there, and I'm going to call this an unfunded mandate. Because not only will those expenses be for the state level, and we heard Representative Porter talk about the additional $400,000+ that the Secretary of State's office requested, we also have to think about the unfunded parts for locals. How are they going to deal with this? Maps, drawn, okay. They have to be printed. People have to be informed. People have to be informed where they now represent. Where are they representing? We have precincts that are split in 2 congressional districts. So that precinct ballot, oh wait, I'm sorry, it's not 1 ballot, it's now 2 ballots. We have a lot of funding issues that this brings up. So I know the whole argument that's came with the previous amendment and another one about it being not germane. This is germane to us here in the State House. This is germane to everyone in the state, the different areas that are going to have to figure out how they make this work and how they make this work financially. Not only are there going to be the hard materials, there's also going to be the fact that there's going to take people time to make this happen. I ask for your support on this amendment. Let's once again make sure that we're transparent. Let's once again make sure that the information is provided to everyone impacted. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment? Representative Schmaltz to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Thanks to the author for his amendment. As we've talked about before, there is a process in place that somebody could have an interim study committee established and answer some of the questions that were asked. And because that process already exists, I would very much appreciate the defeat of this amendment. I've been very careful with the language and would rather it not enter the bill at this time.
Roll call's been requested and will be granted. Is there further discussion? The author of the amendment like to close? He shall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to point out in the legislation, it does list interim study committee as an option, and I understand the response to that, but it also lists assigned to the election committee, something that will already meet during session. So it can be taken care of without going to an interim study committee. We have a process in place. We have a committee in place. We have people in place and engaged. I again ask for your support on this amendment. Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. When the machine is open, record the chair voting no. Have all the members voted? Tally the roll. Roll call shows 65 voting nay, 28 voting aye. The amendment is defeated. There are further amendments.
Further amendments? Chair sees none. Bill's ordered to engrossment. Reminder of the body that we will meet beginning at 10 a.m. tomorrow. With that, the chair recognizes Representative Pressel for a motion. Saying aye. Those opposed no. Motion passes. We are adjourned.